The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome to what I'm hoping is going to be the most exciting hour in the day for you. My name is Stefan van Bracke, and I have the honor to host three of the most knowledgeable people in this company who will be talking about probably the hardest topic within Salesforce today, using commerce, marketing, service together to create one integrated experience, or more simply, as we call it, Salesforce Cross-Cloud. Before we kick this off, I wanted to take a few seconds to thank all of you for joining us today and investing time into learning Salesforce. We know that taking time to watch this series out of your busy schedules is a major invest, and we appreciate all of you being here with us online or watching this recording. And we try very hard to make this the best hour in the day for you. So thank you again for being a Salesforce partner, spending time with us today, and your business with Salesforce. Now, before I let you dive into the content, let me introduce you to the fantastic speakers that we're going to be seeing as part of this series. We have Mihir Panchal, who leads our Salesforce cross-cloud practice, but is also a well-known ambassador to our customers and internal success team. We have Abraham Lloyd, long-standing commerce veteran and major thought leader in the company on cross-cloud. You may recognize his name if you've been here last time for our last series of webinars. We have Derek Ellis, who's the product expert when it comes to Marketing Cloud Connect. Sanjay Bansal, who is responsible for global cross-cloud alliances. If you're a Salesforce partner, you most definitely have to get connected to Sanjay, as he will scale cross-cloud for partners across the ecosystem. And then lastly, myself, my team is going to get you covered if you are a partner in the EMEA or Latin America region and you're looking for marketing and commerce enablement. And I have to apologize and need one more minute before I can hand over to a speaker to cover some of the logistics of this webinar. So keep in mind, very important, this is a series of 4 webinars. So please make sure that you download the calendar link that you will find as part of the confirmation email from GoToWebinar, because that one will get you all of the 4 calendar entries so you don't miss any of this content. Let's have a look at what we got in store for you. So today, April 24th, we're going to talk about delivering integrated B2C experiences. And I let Abraham go into detail on what that is in just 1 minute. Tomorrow, same time, we're going to be talking about data strategy, one customer view, master record management concepts, and solution design. Next week, April 30, we're going to talk about the connectors and the connector deep dive. We're going to talk about commerce to service, commerce to marketing, Marketing Cloud Connect, and solution kits. And then the last one is going to be, after most of us in EMEA are going to have one day off on May 1st, we talk about customer segmentation, the top challenges that we see, segmentation on the Salesforce platform, customer journey management, and exploring engagement models. If you have questions, this is very important. GoToWebinar has a button that lets you raise questions. There's a panel that you can use in order to do that. And we're going to cover all of your questions in the end of today's webinar. You can also talk to us via partner community. If you're a Salesforce partner, there's a group called Official Cross-Cloud B2C Experts Group that you can request access to. And this is where we're going to be hosting the recordings of this webinar series. And with that, I'm going to be handing over to the glorious Abraham Lloyd.
Wow, that was fantastic, Stefan. All right, so before I say thank you and we talk a little bit about what we're going to discuss today, I would like to remind everyone that Salesforce is a publicly traded company, and please, as a partner or customer, make all your purchasing decisions on the platform based on the current state of products, not based on forward-looking statements or things that teams like us might say in meetings like these. Okay, thank you. And so, all right, so one of the things I wanna just cover here is we have a lot of gratitude for the opportunity to present to you. As Stefan mentioned, I'm here with Mihir Panchal, and we are members of the Cross-Cloud program here at Salesforce. Okay, now, what we want to do is just take a moment, a really brief moment, to explain our mission, purpose, and experience. There's a group of us within Salesforce in the success group that form a cross-functional team. And our goal here is to improve customer success in multi-cloud deployments, all right? So to do this, we bring all the resources and expertise that we can to bear within our company and help our customers realize the full value of our platform. We do this by working with customers and partners to reduce the friction that exists using multiple clouds today. And through this, we then try to pave the way for the future of integrated customer experience within Salesforce. So everything that you're going to learn today, and as part of this series, is data, information, best practices, learnings that we've gathered from customers as well as partners, and are looking to share with you through this format. So if you are a partner and you're looking for engagement or enablement from the cross-cloud team, you can engage Sanjay or Stefan, as they mentioned. Similarly, if you have a customer that you feel would benefit from an enablement, we are here at your disposal to help guide your customer and teach them the things that they need to be successful when implementing a cross-cloud implementation. Mihir, is there anything you want to add before we kick off?
No, I think everything you covered is really important. And the other part of this program is that we're working very closely with our product teams within Salesforce as well. So, you know, as partners, we're an important link to our customers. And as you see some of these challenges, or you know, things that are working well, things that aren't working well, and you know, engage us. And you know, this is our way to also bring the product teams back in, so we can help make your lives easy as working with our customers.
All right, awesome, fantastic. All right, so let's pivot now to what we're going to discuss in today's webinar. All right, and so the title is Delivering Integrated B2C Experiences. We've got 4 core topics that we're going to dive into. First, let's take a moment to frame what a connected customer experience looks like today on our platform. Specifically, what do customers expect from the brands that they interact with? We're also going to pivot then to a customer use case. We're going to introduce you to Northern Trail Outfitters, a company that we use here within Salesforce to model customer experiences and talk through what their cross-cloud goals are. This is going to lead us to a discussion about discovery and how important it is to ask the right questions when working with customers to help scope and define the guidelines as well as success criteria for cross-cloud engagements and the use cases that customer desire. And then from there, we're going to talk through integration options, what's available, both current state as well as future state. And so this will include an overview of options available today, tomorrow, as well as in the future. Please, Astra would like to remind you to share your questions via the questions panel. We'll go through Q&A at the end of the webinar content. And then lastly, you'll be given a survey at the end of this webinar. Please complete the survey, give us feedback. It helps us guide the content that we're going to develop for future surveys, and we want to make sure that this time is as valuable as possible for you, giving you as much actionable information as we can in the hour. All right, and so let's pivot now. Let's talk about what is the connected customer experience. You know, talk through how and why customer expectations are changing. Well, so look, I think everyone is familiar with this, both as a customer and as a professional, that customers really expect a seamless journey, right? They don't expect things to be disjointed. They expect the brands that they interact with to know who they are, know what their preferences are, know what their history is. And these connected journeys, what they do is they deliver tremendous business value to customers when they can be developed, all right, and delivered. They help accelerate growth. They improve speed and agility in terms of maturing the relationship between brands and customers. They help to unify the customer engagement, so that way customers are getting a consistent experience with the brand. What that does is that it creates trust, and then from there you can personalize and leverage the data that you're collecting from customers to even improve their experience further. So when we think about building these journeys typically span multiple clouds, right? So you have Marketing Cloud, where we work through engagement, Commerce Cloud, where we transact with customers, and then Service Cloud, where we operate on a retention model, trying to maintain them as a customer and create the best experience that we can from a service standpoint, all right? This is hard, you know, and part of the reason that can be challenging is that customers demand convenience, and this drive for convenience is permeating places that it just hasn't before, all right? What we're seeing is that customers are demanding more consistency in their experiences. And so we're seeing this through mobile orders, through an increase in orders sourced from social, as well as increases in revenue generation through AI, as well as B2B sales. This demand for consistency and convenience only gets harder because customers are now connected to us through more devices and systems than ever before. So when we think about customer data and the experiences that they have today, the reality is that these experiences are pretty siloed, right? So here's Samantha Smith. We'd like to introduce you. Here's 4 different places Sam has digital experiences. And if you look at them, you look at her call center experience, she has a phone number as well as a Gmail address. She has a Twitter profile. She has a separate email or a different email through another experience. In commerce, she has 2 orders placed through 2 different names and 2 different email addresses and 2 different phone numbers. And then her community profile has references to her email as well as her Twitter profile. So each one of these experiences accurately represents who Sam is, but collating this data into a common profile is challenging, right? Ideally, what we want is one customer ID that we could use to build this view where you have a master profile or a master record, and then you can leverage other systems or other sources of data in a federated manner to only retrieve the data that you need. Well, this is the promise, right? This is what our customers want on the Salesforce platform. They want the ability to look at their customer holistically this way. And so let's talk about that.
Just to add to what you're saying, that's the topic we're going to cover tomorrow. So for those who can join tomorrow, I think we're going to cover how we actually make it happen and how do we solve for that one customer view as it exists in today's set of clouds and capabilities.
Awesome, thanks for here. So let's pivot now to Northern Trail Outfitters and walk through an example use case highlighting common cross-cloud goals, implementation practices, and some of the outcomes that occur. So here we have Northern Trail Outfitters, or NTO for short. And so who are they? Well, they're an omni-channel retailer. They serve online, in-store, and external customers via its Salesforce implementation. Part of what they do is they collate customer and order data across multiple sources, right? So they have B2C commerce orders, point of sale orders, and an external sales audit system. They're all integrated to centralized customer and transactional history. They also do cross-channel coupon activation, redemption, and loyalty membership. Their coupon and loyalty programs serve both online and offline customers. What their goal is they want to integrate B2C commerce, marketing, and service clouds, and they're also looking to leverage Heroku as a data lake. All right, part of what's driving this is they have a store of 10 years worth of historical transactional data. This history includes loyalty membership as well as coupon transactions. So if we look at the clouds that they're interested in, and we look at the use cases that they're looking to realize, this seems typical of most customers, right? You look at Marketing Cloud, they want to do messaging and journeys, transactional emails, they want to be able to build marketing segments and attribute customers. In B2C commerce, you want to be able to capture customers, improve conversion, do personalization, promotions, and loyalty registration. With Service Cloud, you want to be able to consistently identify customers, handle caseloads on behalf of those customers, provide omni-channel customer support, and do order status and returns as well as order on behalf of. Analytics Cloud is a cloud that wasn't mentioned as part of their primary set of cross-cloud goals, but by leveraging these other clouds, they want to be able to draw up analytics about who their customers are, how do they transact, and create a centralized dashboard of online and offline interactions. All right, and then lastly, they want to be able to use Heroku as a data lake, centralizing all sources of customer and transaction data. They also want to leverage this as a source of raw segmentation data from Marketing Cloud. Well, as partners, I feel like we've all gone down this path of realizing the use cases, working with the customers to align on goals. Typically, these customers are going to engage multiple partners to get this done because the scope of these projects is very, very large. You'll have a Commerce Cloud partner as well as a Marketing Cloud partner or a Service Cloud partner, a partner for Heroku as well. Go through the process of collecting requirements, This will lead to the development of architecture and architectural diagrams. Here we have an overview of NTO's cross-cloud architecture, where you can see Heroku serving as the hub to collect customer history and transactional history from multiple sources. Commerce Cloud is integrated directly with Marketing Cloud and Service Cloud. We have an integration from Heroku through Postgres to Service Cloud and the Analytics Cloud. And then we have a number of offline processes coming in from external sources, specifically a POS store, as well as the order management system and sales audit systems that bring order data into Heroku. And so all the partners agree on the implementation approach. We move forward with starting development. Our teams are siloed, so you know what? Their work can be siloed, and the deliverables that they produce follow this. And then this is what we find happens sometimes with customers. Expectations are missed. And how are those expectations missed here? Well, here's an overview of some of the common misses in cross-cloud implementations that we've seen working with customers and partners through the cross-cloud program. What we find is that there's incomplete or inconsistent use case implementation. Cross-cloud use cases are implemented in silos, and while they may succeed in their siloed implementation, they failed to deliver on cross-cloud goals. From a data standpoint, duplicate or fragmented customer data gets introduced, and this is largely driven by a lack of a master record strategy. And the end result is this introduces duplicate customer records and fragmented customer data relationships. Because of this, data processing and synchronization lag time can escalate. Data volume and chained integration transactions can create synchronization lag. And then overall, this generates a lack of trust in the view of the customer. So what this also produces is escalating data and storage costs, because duplicate data or missed data or data volume expectations were inaccurate. And the data cleanup then that needs to occur is difficult to pinpoint without introducing risks to customer profiles. And so part of what we've done in the cross-cloud program is collecting this feedback, thinking, you know what, we need to find a better way. We need to empower our customers. We need to empower our partners. We also need to be able to inform our product teams about how to find a better way through these implementations. And what we landed on were a core set of guiding principles that we feel customers and partners need to adopt to deliver these integrated B2C commerce experiences, all right? First, they need to align on a common data strategy. Now, the meeting or the webinar tomorrow that Mihir is leading is going to dive very deeply into this, specifically the data strategy education and the best practices that we've established working with partners and customers, as well as our product teams. The story I like to tell about this is that this is the wax on, wax off Karate Kid Kung Fu that will keep your cross-cloud implementation safe. Okay, so I strongly recommend and invite everyone to attend tomorrow's webinar. The material there is fantastic. So a data strategy is necessary. Next, customers and partners need to fully understand their cross-cloud use cases. What we find is that use cases are understood in a siloed cloud perspective, but because there isn't a common data strategy, understanding how the impacts of a use case in the cloud impact other clouds, as well as the overall 360-degree view of the customer profile, isn't fully realized. Okay, and so cloud-specific use cases need to be aligned with cross-cloud goals in order to be able to succeed. All right. Next, customers need to have a point of view on what 360 degrees means to them. Okay, what we're finding is that establishing a 360-degree view of the customer does require a shift in thinking operationally with customers and their teams. And what this does is it forces a reevaluation about how brands and the relationship that they have with their customers begin. And lastly, the thing that's necessary here is organizational leadership and its ability to drive behavioral change within an organization. Because we're working with data, part of what may need to change within an organization in order to have a successful cross-cloud implementation is an adjustment in team behavior, specifically to align with the use cases or the business rules or some combination thereof to ensure that the 360-degree view and the success criteria for the cross-cloud implementation gets realized. Part of this also involves training, oversight, or guidance that may need to be distributed across the organization and those teams. We'll talk through a couple examples of this in just a few moments. I wanna maybe take a break here. Mihir, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think you've covered the key points. The one additional item I'd like to add is, ultimately the other piece that we're seeing is, what are the best ways of connecting these clouds and what are the best options available? Salesforce as a platform is pretty big, and there's lots of different ways and options that allows you to connect. And I think that is kind of the other pain point that we've seen. And also kind of the learnings that we've seen is there's different ways of doing this. Some of you have your own connectors for some of these clouds as well as partners, which is all great. I think it's just more of a question of how do we guide our customers on the best options to support. And that's really kind of what we're going to focus on today as this webinar goes through.
All right, awesome, thank you. And so let's pivot now and talk about the importance of discovery and why it's important to ask the right questions to ensure cross-cloud success. All right, so what we want to do is cover some of the questions that customers need to have a point of view on, that ideally they should be able to answer, but getting to these answers typically does require partnership across the customer teams as well as the SIs that they engage in. So first, when we think about customers, how is your organization structured and how are the teams interacting with each other? Just like these clouds can be siloed, what we find is that customer teams are almost always siloed. And so as a result, the things that I do with data in, let's say, Marketing Cloud, I may not be aware of the impact I may be introducing to data in Commerce Cloud or in Service Cloud or in Analytics Cloud or our data lake because I don't communicate with those teams. This is part of the reason why these guiding principles that need to span clouds and teams to ensure cross-cloud success are so important. And so when we think about organizational structure, these organizations need a champion. They need a program or a product owner across the company. They need executive sponsorship. They need to have a governance model in place to govern the use of data as well as the processes that companies and teams follow working with data to live up to and maintain the integrity of the 360-degree vision. And then what are the business processes in place to talk to each individual business unit need? Mihir, I want to pivot to you and see if there's, just based on your experience with customers, what you found.
Oh, okay. I think I'm unmuted now.
There we go.
Yeah, sorry. So I think to me, the other piece is data stewardship. So what I've seen with customers when I chat with them is, as part of the overall data piece, governance models, etc., is what does that data stewardship look like? How do we actually put it all together? What are things we need to consider? Those are all important pieces that are coming up more and more as we start to integrate our clouds together.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you. All right, so now let's talk about data and specifically what is the data flow, right? Where do you get data from and how is this data going to be used to support your business? Part of what we found is that customers sometimes they have very, very, very clear plans on how they want to leverage all of their data and why it's valuable. Sometimes though, customers do not, and you have to guide them to maybe come to those realizations, right? And so what do these questions look like? What data do you need to be able to support your business? How many years or what types of data? What information is needed to define the customer master? And so this is part of what will get discussed in tomorrow's data strategy webinar, but customers need to think about how the master represents the customers they deal with and that what in that master record needs to exist so that it can be in service to all the teams within an organization, okay? And so in addition to this, what business processes need to be considered to be able to synchronize profiles across clouds? We'll talk about profile orchestration in depth a little bit more, but as a customer's relationship changes with a brand, this introduces interesting scenarios about how to merge a customer's history into their profile while also working to identify and maintain their identity. All right, and so typically these things need business processes. Customers sometimes need to make choices about how they choose to represent data, especially data that might be perceived as anonymous versus data that is registered. And so let's pivot now and talk to use cases. And so what are your use cases and how are you going to engage the customer? So what I like to think about use cases is that use cases are the armor that protect customer implementations, all right? We need to understand data strategy. That data strategy needs to then help inform the use cases that we want to be able to leverage and serve customers through. And so when we think about use cases, they need to be articulated in business value. And so how does that look? Well, what are the key business goals looking to be achieved by integrating the clouds? Customers should be able to describe that and describe that in business value terms. They should not be described in terms of technical achievements. What are the top use cases that you want to achieve? So as an example, 360-degree view, technically as a use case, but what do you want to be able to do with that 360-degree view of the customer? These are the types of conversations that we need to be having with customers to help ensure we can deliver the business value that they expect. How do you discern between anonymous interactions and known customers? So we'll talk a little bit more about this, but one of the interesting caveats that comes out of implementing cross-cloud is that it makes you really think about when a customer becomes a customer of yours. And that does not always start with a transaction. Often that starts either with a first piece of engagement or the first piece of engagement with them, or the first piece where they engage with you. And so this causes customers, or it really should force customers to rethink how their relationship needs to exist and how does that relationship get represented in data. And then lastly, what kind of segmentation is needed to engage with your customers? This is another common question that customers pose. How do you define segments? Well, in order to define segments, you need to be able to describe what should segments represent and what data is necessary to be able to attribute and then aggregate those segments together. Mihir, I wanna reach out to you here, and before we pivot to the next set of questions, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I'm good. I think you covered most of the key items. Thanks.
All right, awesome, thank you. All right, so what else, when we think about discovery, do we want to talk through? Well, sources of customer data is important because typically customers will have data from multiple sources, not just Salesforce clouds. There'll be other external sources like an ERP system or a legacy CRM, or maybe an external data lake or something that we'll need to integrate with, okay? And so what online or offline or legacy sources of data exist? How is this data today currently coalesced into single customer views, as well as what's the data volume? This is specifically important because with the data volume, you want to be able to estimate or at least extrapolate what volume would look like on core to be able to assess what data storage costs would look like, okay? Another question to bring up is how do customers get introduced to your business today? This speaks to the notion of online versus offline customer representation. You know, is it primarily through transactions, or how are customers engaging first through service or marketing, right? And if they're engaging first through service or marketing, how are they then identified? One of the pieces of data strategy guidance that we provide for Marketing Cloud is that whenever you reference a customer through Marketing Cloud, it should be through a subscriber key that uniquely represents that customer. Typically, that should not be an email address because email addresses aren't unique to a human. Emails typically represent a channel through which humans like to communicate and interact. And so if you're going to adhere to that, how do you attribute an ID to that customer when what you may have in the beginning is just an email and a first name or a last name. So these are things this is why we ask these questions, so that we can work through what those use cases might look like. And then lastly, what profile orchestration business rules need to be implemented. And so when we think about how our relationship with a customer gets initiated, how that relationship changes over time, how we grow to learn more about who the customer is, as well as how the customer relationship changes once they choose to identify who they are through, let's say, profile registration. There are rules that need to be put in place that describe how those profiles are managed. Okay, so typically, from which systems can a customer profile be created? All right, or from which systems can a profile be modified or updated? Across these systems, are there rules as to which profile properties can be updated? And then how should the progression of an anonymous to a registered customer profile be managed? There typically needs to be some sort of way to identify that the anonymous representation of a customer is the registered representation of a customer. But even if you have that, our customers need to make decisions about how do they want that data represented in their systems. One of the common use cases that I like to present to customers as a way of really challenging their thinking on this is, for me, I have been transacting with, let's say, this NTO for several years now in an anonymous way. I do it fairly consistently, though, with the same email address. And so now, because NTOs incentivize me, what I choose to do is the next order I place, I'm going to register. All right. I work through my registration. I use my same email address. Now, within Service Cloud, NTO has a history of my purchases that includes my anonymous orders as well as my registered orders, because they were able to resolve who I am as a customer. But me as a customer, I'm not aware that they're doing this, right? And so if I call and say, hey, I placed an order a few months ago, and a service agent looks at my order history, they're going to see my anonymous orders as well as my registered orders. So what do they respond to? Do they speak to the fact that, oh, it looks like you've ordered things from us before and reference my anonymous orders? Does that break maybe a contract of trust with me as a customer, because I don't have an expectation that maybe you know that I've done those purchases or that they're attached to my account? And so what this does is it requires thoughtful thinking on how these relationships mature, how data established from an anonymous customer profile versus a registered customer profile, when we can identify that is the same customer, how does this data get coalesced? And then with service agents, we have to think about how do we train service agents to be able to talk through that data, as opposed to just giving them the data and not giving them guidance on how to interact or speak to this data with their customers as they're working with and iterating or relating to them. And so what this leads to is what we like to call the 4 layers to cross-cloud strategy success. All right, we talked through these through some of the questions. We talked through these earlier as part of the guiding principles. This will be covered in more depth in the other sessions later this week and next week. But first, we have to agree on data strategy. We have to define profile orchestration rules. We have to articulate and define cross-cloud use cases. And then what we can do is design the cross-cloud architecture. Now, what we see is that on engagements that experience trouble, these first 3 items are typically skipped over, not dove into in enough depth. And what we see is that customers then progress to, customers and partners progress to designing the cross-cloud architecture and implementation and development. And then what this leads to is missed expectations. So look, cross-cloud success here is a team sport, all right? Customers and partners, including us as Salesforce, need to work together. And one of the things we do to work together is be concrete. We have to focus on understanding use cases. For partners, Customers need to have a quarterback. They need to have someone that can drive change and drive the project and the implementation. And so it's important to establish this within the customer's leadership. This quarterback is going to get input from multiple teams and typically siloed groups. So having someone that has this degree of influence is important. And then with this influence, ensure that you discuss data strategy, all right? It's important to understand the customer's maturity as well as their governance model, and if necessary, guide and influence what the data strategy is that they should implement based on best practices and learnings that we help provide and engage on. And again, so this is where the cross-cloud team, when we work with customers, what we find is that we focus significantly less time on technical implementation and more time on getting concrete with use cases, establishing leadership and governance, and then helping customers think about data strategy and what success looks like through their use cases in a cross-cloud environment. Here, I want to, before we dive into implementation options, I want to ask you if there's anything you'd like to add, or maybe talk through what this experience has been like for you working with customers through the cross-cloud program.
I mean, everything you talked about is spot on. I think as partners and as customers, especially when they're buying these multiple clouds, they're looking for someone to help drive these things together. And I think as partners, there's a huge opportunity to think about building a cross-cloud practice program within your organizations itself that you can work through with customers on to drive and be that quarterback. Every customer I've chatted with where we've talked to them about these kinds of experiences, there's definitely been a need to be able to have that quarterback, have that partner that essentially helps them drive all the different pieces. So I think it's something that I think is needed, and there's an opportunity for it as well from what we see with chatting with our customers.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's fantastic. Okay, all right, so let's move on to the next section. This is the last section in the webinar, and then what we'll do is we'll pivot to questions from the webinar audience. Very much looking forward to that. The last couple of times we've done this, we've had a really, really great Q&A session. So we'll try to get through this quickly. All right, so look, if you're a Salesforce partner, you know that there are many paths to accomplish cross-cloud use cases today, all right? And what we want you to remember, and what we remind our customers, is that the best path for them is to drive this based on customer needs as well as their requirements, which is why we're emphasizing heavily the need for data strategy, profile orchestration, use case understanding, the right leadership, and cross-cloud use case definition. So it's important to know what your integration options are and understand how those options vary depending on use case complexity. So what we have here is a fairly straightforward graph where we have low development on the left to fully custom development on the right. We have our B2C commerce connectors, which are point-to-point integrations between Salesforce applications. So you have MC Connect that you can use between Marketing Cloud and Service Cloud, the Commerce to Marketing and Commerce to Service B2C connectors, as well as the Einstein Analytics Marketing Cloud connector and Postgres connector, which enables you to pull data from Postgres into analytics. Additionally, there's other options, right? So we have MuleSoft, recently acquired, maybe not recently acquired, but one of our more recent and well-received acquisitions, which helps enable API-based integrations. So what this does is it allows you to pull data from external systems into Salesforce and then integrate with Salesforce clouds via the Anypoint Exchange. MuleSoft's a fantastic product if you have multiple external systems that you're trying to pull data from, and through that create a common set of APIs that your enterprise can leverage to drive digital experiences. We'll provide an overview of what that looks like in a moment. We also have Heroku. So Heroku can be used as a data lake for all customer data. It can handle complex business logic as well as pre-processing. There is an integration option built into Heroku called Heroku Connect also that allows you to connect a Heroku Postgres instance with Salesforce Core. So this is one of the building blocks that you can use if you're, let's say, moving data to a data lake and you're pulling it in from multiple systems. What you can do is you can inject your customer data into Heroku, and then Heroku Connect can then integrate that data back into Salesforce Core so that your customer data can be represented through Service or Sales Cloud. And then lastly, one thing to remember is that all of our clouds, Marketing Cloud, Service Cloud, Sales Cloud, Salesforce Core, all have native APIs that enable direct integration. Okay, so you can leverage these APIs directly. Our Commerce to Marketing and our Commerce to Service connectors for Commerce Cloud, what they are, they essentially leverage these APIs by creating wrappers that enable simpler integration into Commerce Cloud. But what we do recommend is that you only use these for use cases that are not covered by other options. Mihir, is there anything you want to add just based on all this?
Nope, I think let's continue.
All right, awesome. And so let's talk first about the Salesforce connectors. And so if you're focusing on connecting the Salesforce clouds, what we recommend is that the Salesforce connectors be considered your first option, or that you at least evaluate the core use cases that the Salesforce connectors provide to is maybe that first conduit to integration. All right, so the connectors, what they do is they provide reusable code to accelerate point-to-point integration between Commerce Cloud and either Marketing or Service Cloud. These are not productized connectors. What they are is they should be considered developer frameworks or enablement frameworks that facilitate the integration between Commerce and Marketing. Because these are frameworks, though, they can be extended to adjust their existing use case implementation as well as implement net new use cases. And we see customers and partners that are doing this today. All right. One of the implementation considerations around using connectors specifically is about primary keys between clouds. This needs to be considered to ensure the data flows back and forth occur in a trustworthy and a consistent way. I had mentioned this previously. Marketing Cloud Connect, as an example, needs the primary key for customers in Marketing Cloud to be the contact ID of those customers in Service or Sales Cloud. Tomorrow's session will dive much deeper into why that is, but this is it's absolutely a consideration that regarding data strategy that you should be familiar with. One of the considerations about the connectors is that our point-to-point connectors should not be used in any way to do an initial data load. So if, as an example, you have the Service Cloud connector set up between Commerce and Service Cloud, and you're looking to load all of your Commerce Cloud customers into Service Cloud, we do not recommend that you use the connector to handle that. You should use the Service Cloud connector for B2C commerce to handle profile creation and profile updates, but to do an import at scale, you should handle that through a secondary process. Typically, what customers do is they'll export data from Commerce Cloud and then import that customer data separately in Service Cloud. So what's great about these connectors? Well, they're available for free to Salesforce customers. They do support a wide range of core use cases. Marketing Cloud Connect is a productized offering as well, and that's freely available. And then customers, as I had mentioned, can easily extend the connectors because they come with source code. There is nothing within the B2C Commerce Connector or the B2C Commerce Connector for marketing or service that is encrypted. All customers and partners get the source code for that. Ideally, this is for low complexity architectures with minimal point-to-point integrations. All right. The considerations when implementing the connectors are that this is going to require implementation effort as part of the deployment to realize use case value. So these connectors, because they're development frameworks, they need to be integrated both in Commerce Cloud as well as their target secondary cloud, whether it's Service Cloud or Marketing Cloud. Okay. Managing long-term maintenance of these connectors when you're integrating 3 or more clouds can be challenging. So because they are point-to-point, long-term maintenance should be something that's considered. These connectors are not productized because they're enablement frameworks. They do have a Salesforce product team that supports them, but because they're not productized, they don't have a customer-facing roadmap or SLAs that our products typically do. And then they're not typically ideal for complex integration architectures for customers with complex data manipulation or processing needs. Okay, the connectors work very well, but they do have specific implementation constraints. And so as an example, with the Service Cloud connector for B2C commerce, the Service Cloud connector currently only supports person accounts as a customer model within Service Cloud. So if you use accounts and contacts as an example, or your customer does, you can leverage the Service Cloud connector for B2C commerce, but in order to do so, you have to customize the connector to work with your customer model. And so this is an example of if you have an implementation that doesn't completely align with the Service Cloud or the Commerce Cloud connectors implementation requirements, you will need to customize it to be able to take advantage of it. So, so what this slide covers here is some of the caveats of the B2C commerce connectors. We had mentioned them, but just to reiterate, what these do is they follow the cartridge model for B2C commerce. They absolutely will require configuration and development in multiple clouds. They are extensible, so they are able to support additional use cases with development implementation effort, and they typically need to be customized to align with the customer's business goals. One of the things to remember about these connectors is that they are not plug and play. They will require development effort. Even for core use cases, typically customers require some level of customization because marketing and service tend to be very personal expressions for businesses, all right? They're not eligible for Salesforce technical support, but they are eligible for strategic implementation support and enablement through the cross-cloud program. And so you can engage us as a partner, or your customers can engage us through your partner manager or your customer success manager. These are available freely to customers and partners, but please review the documentation because they do have qualifying prerequisites, very similar to what I described with person accounts in the Service Cloud connector. And so what these do, again, they are enabled by point-to-point connections between clouds. The B2C commerce connectors leverage REST and SOAP endpoints across the clouds. This is how their integrations occur. It's important to remember that these connectors do not have platform-level integrations. Those platform-level integrations are coming, but they're not available yet today. And so let's dive just a little bit deeper into what these connectors are and the use cases they support. We're going to start with the Commerce Cloud and Marketing Cloud connector. And so what this connector does is it facilitates the integration between Commerce and Marketing Cloud and enables trigger-based messaging on shopper activity as well as behavior. So what are some of the things that you can do if you implement this? Well, one of the things you could do is you can deliver transactional emails triggered from Commerce Cloud through Marketing Cloud. One of the pain points in Commerce Cloud today is with its email implementation. Typically, if a customer wants to do emails through Commerce Cloud, what they need to do is they need to engage a Commerce Cloud developer to modify the email template or customize the email template. What this does is it slows down marketing teams because it places their innovation schedule or their ability to innovate on the core platform delivery team schedule. And so by implementing the Commerce Cloud and Marketing Cloud connector, you can put all of your email authoring in Marketing Cloud and only use Commerce Cloud to trigger those messages. And so this is, so marketers love this, marketing teams love this because this enables them to go faster and be agile and leverage Marketing Cloud's best of breed tooling for email authoring, template managing, journey management, and email delivery. And so what are the kinds of emails you can send? You can send transactional emails. Think about order confirmation, order status updates, account registration, or password reset, as well as behavioral emails. And so behavioral emails include things like abandoned cart or abandoned search, basically emails that are triggered not based on a specific transactional activity, but emails that are triggered based on an analysis of customer behavior. the other piece that the Marketing Cloud Connector facilitates is providing an actionable view of customer catalog content and orders in Marketing Cloud. The Marketing Cloud Connector includes data feed templates that can be used to export this data on schedules from Commerce Cloud to Marketing Cloud. So you can now leverage this data within Marketing Cloud to do things like generate product recommendations, review and attribute customers, to build out segments, and then take those segments and drop them into Marketing Cloud journeys. So when we think about the use cases, here's a very broad summary of the different transactional and behavioral emails that the Marketing Cloud Connector supports. One of the things I want to remind the audience about is the Marketing Cloud Connector is a development framework as well. And so if your customer has other use cases that they want to implement, you can leverage the Marketing Cloud Connector as a starting point for different email delivery, different journey initiation from Commerce Cloud. It's really a starting point. What the connector does is it abstracts the REST API calls that are being made to Marketing Cloud to be able to initiate a triggered email or drop a journey. So you really are limited only by your capability to consume and take advantage of Marketing Cloud's REST APIs from Commerce Cloud. And so what the connector does is it provides a framework for how to do this. So now let's pivot to the Commerce and Service Cloud Connector. So what this connector does is it facilitates the integration between Commerce and Service Cloud. It enables a shared view of customer and order data. It allows self-service case creation as well from the Commerce Cloud storefront, so that when a customer, let's say, completes a contact us form or provides feedback, that can be transformed into a case that lives in Service Cloud. Additionally, it enables cross-sell and upsell opportunities through order on behalf of, where companies can now turn service interactions into cross-sell and upsell opportunities. And this is accomplished through the order on behalf of capability that Commerce Cloud has, and then gets embedded within Service Cloud. So from a use case standpoint, we have account registration and synchronization. The Service Cloud Connector does facilitate configurable bidirectional customer data synchronization from commerce to service. So as an example, if I register my customer record in Commerce Cloud, it will create a person account in Service Cloud. Similarly, if I add an address to my profile in Commerce Cloud, that gets created in Service Cloud as well. Additionally, if I change my email address in Service Cloud, or if I ask a service agent to do that, that change can propagate down to Commerce Cloud, and all of this is driven via configuration. So as part of, so like the Commerce and Service Cloud connectors with Marketing Cloud as well, they cover a broad collection of use cases. One of the things that we want to bring to your attention are 6 retail solution kits, which we launched on March 25th and currently are available from developer.salesforce.com. All right. What these solution kits do is they dive very deep into very specific retail use cases and explain how to leverage the commerce to service or commerce to marketing connectors for B2C commerce to do things like implement abandoned cart, personalized recommendations, implement transactional emails or order confirmation emails, do personalization based on offers or coupons, generate a customer history view, as well as enable order on behalf of. Okay, if you're not familiar with these solution kits, I strongly recommend looking for them on developer.salesforce.com and reviewing them. They are very detailed, and every solution kit includes a use case overview, an implementation workflow, configuration guidance for the use case specific to it, as well as an overview of the connector and considerations and best practices for that specific use case's implementation.
Abraham, if I can add a couple of things, just on that one item. Yes. Look, we realize that it's not simple to integrate some of these and make these use cases real. So what we've done is provided that initial path. We know that some customers have very custom requirements that you need to move away from this path. But I think the goals of these solution kits is to really give you that initial approach that you can take. So you can actually start somewhere and then start to look at what other options you have as the customer's requirements dictate. The other thing is also, we've started with these 6 use cases. We're actually looking at adding a few more over the course of the year. So keep an eye out for additional ones that we come out with in this year. And the last part is, this is a two-way street. We're doing this to help yourselves, like our partners, but also as you see some challenges and issues here, feel free to connect with Stefan, Sanjay, your partner Alliance team members, to give us back that feedback. And what we're looking at is collecting some of that feedback so we can enhance and change these solution kits as well, and enhance them for yourselves.
Awesome. Okay, so let's pivot now to Marketing Cloud Connect and what it does. So Marketing Cloud Connect enables integration between Marketing Cloud and Service Cloud, okay? And so from sales or service or community, what it does is it enables messaging for contacts, leads, and users so that you can send emails from within these clouds via Marketing Cloud. It does synchronization of customer data from Service Cloud to Marketing Cloud, as well as enables the export and synchronization of engagement data from Marketing Cloud to Service or Sales Cloud. Okay, so in a cross-cloud environment, Marketing Cloud Connect is primarily responsible for integrating Service Cloud and Marketing Cloud. There's specific constraints and guiding principles that need to be followed to really maximize this integration, but it does a great job at handling that responsibility. So core capabilities, it establishes and configures the connection between service and marketing. It provides direct sending capabilities from Sales and Service and Community Cloud through Marketing Cloud. It enables Journey Builder Marketing Cloud Connect functionality so that you can leverage journeys from within Sales or Service Cloud. And it also controls the routing of email activity and the definition of custom objects in Sales and Service Cloud to store tracking data. So that way service agents, when a customer calls, a service agent can see the engagement data for a specific customer and know things like what journey they're in, as well as what emails they've received and what they've opened, as well as what they have not. And so yes, so we talked through how it can use CRM to send data or to send email from Sales and Service and Community. What you can do is you can send email from a person through a campaign. You can also email reports, and all of this will get pushed out through Marketing Cloud. All right, so now I think we want to pivot to MuleSoft. And so when would you use MuleSoft? Well, MuleSoft is great at bringing in and integrating data from multiple external systems across Salesforce clouds. So what differentiates MuleSoft is that it provides an API-led integration approach that enables customers to bring data back and forth from external systems as well as Salesforce clouds. This approach enables businesses to add new systems and orchestrate data in ways that this data can be easily used, and these APIs can then be used. Part of what really differentiates MuleSoft is that it has a layered API creation approach that ultimately reduces the amount of effort needed to maintain API-based communication across these systems, while also exposing what's called an experience API layer that can be used by all systems, as well as new systems and applications within an enterprise to drive customer experiences consistently. Okay. What are the pros? Hey, you can bring external and Salesforce systems together. It's a single platform for integration and API management that isolates integration logic for better maintenance. It automatically enables governance such as versioning and management and security, as well as performance analysis of your API calls. This is one of its really great strengths. And it also enables you to plug in Customer 360 in the future as a master record API endpoint. So as an example, you could have an endpoint that you're currently using to derive master record. What you can then do is you can plug Customer 360 in as another endpoint or as a complementary endpoint so that C360 can now be used. And by doing this, you're not disrupting any of your experience APIs. You're just modifying this one API endpoint specifically. This use case really speaks to the value that MuleSoft brings to the table. So considerations, in order for this to be successful, like with anything cross-cloud or integration-based, what you need to do is it requires implementation as part of deployment. There absolutely is customization and development that needs to occur here. Anypoint connectors only cover core data model and will need to be customized for your business. It's not a quick solution for integrating Salesforce clouds compared to the connectors, okay? And the price point is typically high for mid-market and small business customers. Some Salesforce connectors enabled through MuleSoft as well are provided by third-party versus Salesforce product teams. And a great example of this is Marketing Cloud. So what we want to convey here is MuleSoft's approach to API-led Customer 360, right? So we have a layered API approach that introduces operational agility and experience consistency. At the bottom of our display, we have a set of system APIs. Now, what these endpoints are instances of MuleSoft designed to capture these system APIs across each of the systems that we integrate with. What we do is we then create process APIs that represent specific domains. So here you could see how all of the system APIs are then coalesced into two specific domain APIs. There's the customer profile API as well as the customer interactions API, and then this gets coalesced into the customer service API. And now from this top level experience API, all enterprise applications have the ability to leverage this. And they can do this now without having to worry about business rules associated with interacting with these lower level system APIs. This really speaks to the power of MuleSoft. It does take orchestration and design to realize this value, but the value is real and absolutely works for certain customers. Aha, sorry about that. All right, we're going to walk through Heroku very quickly, or when you need a data lake to perform complex business logic. So what makes Heroku really great is that it's greenfield, right? And so what customers do is they use Heroku as a middle layer to bring data in from external systems as well as other Salesforce clouds. So if you have large data needs or need to access data very frequently, or you have non-standard transformations of data, Heroku is often used as a preprocessor to clean or dedupe or format data prior to using it with other clouds. You can also use it to handle advanced complex business logic to engage with customers. You could use it when you hit API limits due to the large volume of API calls that may be surfaced through your interactions with Core or Marketing Cloud. You also have the option of using it as a way to integrate clouds, but it's not a recommended path. What we say is we only recommend to use this as a last resort because this integration is then very, very, very custom. And what we see from customers is that the cost to maintain this often can be very high. All right. And so what are some of the pros that Heroku provides? Well, it can act as a data lake for all customer data. You can execute custom business logic to drive audience selection. You can also, it brings external and Salesforce systems together, and you can scale if you're hitting your API limits. Considerations though is that, look, you're looking at a fully custom implementation, okay? And so the design, documentation, all of these things that come with custom implementations must be paramount. Typically, you might be looking at a 12 to 18 month development time frame to stand everything up, and so that may not align with your customers' goals. Long-term maintenance means that you have to have resource consistency and the ability to transfer knowledge. And so this is another consideration to be aware of. And then the price point for these kinds of implementations, again, very similar to MuleSoft, is typically high for mid-market and small to medium-sized businesses. All right. this will still need connectors between Marketing and Commerce and Service Cloud. Otherwise, you're looking at additional deployment as part of the full-on custom implementation. And so what we want to convey here is an example of how you could use Heroku as a preprocessor for Marketing Cloud. Within the cross-cloud program, what we've seen working with customers is that some customers will move their data to Heroku and then pre-process it there to create the streamlined, thin version of the customer record that then gets imported into Marketing Cloud. And so from there, this data can then be merged into customer profiles or augment other data extensions that exist within Marketing Cloud. And then Marketing Cloud can use this data to build out audiences that it uses to drop into journeys and drive engagement via the platform. And so look, we just finished talking through a number of options, right? And so what's the best option for you? Well, the reality is that these options need to be driven off of use cases, right? When you think about our reference architecture, here's how to think about these options and where they exist, right? You have your core clouds, you have a segment of connectors that you could use made available through the Salesforce platform. You also have the ability to augment integration options through our App Exchange, as well as core cloud services through the.
And last but not least, really, just to finish it up, I think is, ultimately, you've seen all the different options today. There's a lot of different ways Salesforce provides us to connect the different clouds, but ultimately, which connector to use or which technology, is it MuleSoft, is it Heroku, others, really all depends on the key use cases, right? If the customer says, I want, 10 years worth of history and 500 million records of all my different customers, well, Heroku makes the most sense to use as a data lake to then pre-process some of that data. Or does it make sense to use MuleSoft because they've got a very mature organization that can take advantage of all the capabilities that MuleSoft provides. So I think getting concrete with those use cases is super important as we look at doing this, connecting our clouds. And then the quarterback is really, really important. You can see the technology options. It's not as simple to just say, yep, go build this. It's not clicks and code. It's actually thinking through the overall strategy. How are you going to put it all together? So having that quarterback, either as a partner that you provide our customers and as a way to help them drive and be successful, or have a quarterback within the customer itself that is going to help drive their success across these different organizations that are typically needed for cross-cloud. And then again, data strategy is super important. The connectors also, whether you use connectors, whether you use the different technologies, the data strategy will drive some of that as well. So understanding that is really important as we put these two together. So I think, yeah, we move to Q&A. So please, Stefan, go ahead. If there's any questions, we can help answer. And feel free to bring those separately, whatever the best way to engage is good.
Fantastic. Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation today. I have a lot of questions. So without further ado, I'd like to just jump right into it to just make sure that we make the most of it in the last 15 minutes. So I have a blend of technical questions and architectural questions, and I think just going to be jumping around because there's a couple of very interesting things here. What I would like to ask you before I start is remind me whether we're going to be covering any of these topics in the later stage in the series, so that we can keep this a little bit exciting for everybody, obviously. So Abraham, this is about the. I'm going to start with a technical question to get you fired up a little bit. We've been talking a lot about B2C commerce today. Can you talk about how those connectors are also going to be working with B2B commerce? And just to set the scene a little bit, CloudCraze or B2B commerce is built on Force.com. Can you give us a little bit of an outlook of how this is going to integrate and how this is going to work together in the future?
I can certainly try, Stefan. So with the all right, so the B2C commerce connectors are not designed to work with B2B. All right, they're strictly designed to work with Salesforce Commerce Cloud. What they do is they enable the integration between Salesforce Commerce Cloud and Marketing Cloud and Service Cloud for the core set of use cases that they support. They're There is no plan to extend their capabilities to support B2B. But I think the good news is that B2B would be supported through Marketing Cloud Connect, because B2B is written on Core, and Marketing Cloud Connect supports the integration of our core platform with Marketing Cloud.
Right.
Abraham, I can add a couple of things to that.
I would love that.
So the accounts and contacts that, or person accounts, etc., that B2B commerce uses is the same data model that even an integration between B2C commerce and core would exist or would take place. So as let's say a user is going to be used both as a B2B and a B2C customer, as long as if they create that profile first in B2C commerce, that is an account contact that's going to be, or a person account that's going to be leveraged across all the different clouds. So that data model in itself will remain the same. The B2C connectors do connect a profile that's created in B2C commerce into the Salesforce platform. So that pieces remain the same. The business logic and the other flows that exist from a B2B perspective, let's say the product data set, product catalog, etc., those are going to be unique to each of the products or each of the clouds specifically. So that's where there will be some work that will be required to integrate both them if there's a need to actually integrate the same product SKUs across B2C commerce and B2B commerce. So that's where there's some work or customizations that will be needed. Hopefully that gives you at least a flavor of where some of the things stand. So, and we can cover a lot more details on those questions if you need to.
Excellent, thank you. Just staying with the connectors, a question that I got quite often from the group today is there any plan in place to productize the current commerce connectors, or can you share a little bit of an insight on the roadmap, or what are we going to be looking at in the future?
So yes, so there is no plan right now to productize the connectors, and there's a couple of reasons why. One, the connectors are what we call a development framework or an enablement framework. Okay, they're open sourced for our partners and customers. They support a core set of use cases. They're designed to be extended. That's certainly part of their purpose. And so productizing a development framework, can be challenging. What we've done though, as an organization, is a couple of things. So we do have a product team that is responsible for maintaining the connectors, and their core responsibility is making the connectors simpler to use and extending their collection of supported use cases, all right, specifically to help facilitate the integration between clouds. So while they're not productized, they do have product level support within Salesforce. Additionally, the other way the connectors are supported is through the cross-cloud program. So part of what we do is we act as stewards to the product team to provide feedback based on what partners are saying and customers are saying to help drive priorities of how the connector roadmap is influenced. And so you have us at your disposal to provide that level of feedback.
Right. Staying with connectors and expanding this a little bit to MuleSoft. If we have a project, or if one of our partners looking at a customer project where MuleSoft is either already being used, or where MuleSoft is being or should be used because it is a requirement from an IT standpoint, would you in general recommend, I know this is a generic question, maybe not as well to be answered then if you provide a little more context, but in general, would we suggest to still go ahead with using connectors when integrating commerce, marketing, and service, or should we use MuleSoft and do that kind of custom integration work that would be required in order to integrate those solutions?
So this is a great question. I think it would depend based on the complexity of the use case. Okay, so for system level APIs, one of the things to keep in mind about MuleSoft is that MuleSoft is a conduit and it's not doing business logic. So as an example, if I use MuleSoft to connect to a Service Cloud connector endpoint representing customer registration, all of the business logic that would need to occur within Service Cloud after the registration event was initialized would still need to live in Service Cloud. And that's the piece of logic that is leveraged or that is provided by the Service Cloud connector. And so MuleSoft wouldn't necessarily be responsible for implementing that. But if you wanted to leverage that endpoint through multiple services to drive customer creation within Service Cloud, then you could use MuleSoft to help it abstract that out.
Right. Okay. Do you see any risks if we were to, in an actual project, you would use different strategies? So for different functionality, use MuleSoft, and then for the other half, use the connectors?
I don't. I think that there is. There's certainly the possibility of risk, especially in cross-cloud implementations, because they tend to be complex, and that complexity expands when you add more and more integration points. But I think if you're driving this through use cases and you're leveraging the connectors because you're trying to fulfill a core set of use cases that they provide, and then you're using MuleSoft for a different set of use cases, then that should be fine and appropriate. This is where having the data strategy and a clear understanding of your use cases and the business value that they're supposed to generate can help protect you, because what it will do is it will weed out the implementation of the technology that doesn't generate business value.
Right.
I can add a couple of things there. We recently had a similar situation at a customer, and I think in that specific use case, because of what they wanted to achieve, it made sense to actually use connectors, just because the work, as Abraham mentioned, the work that's required, the business logic that's required to do some of the things, the connector already has that code. So you actually have the option to potentially leverage the connector, and at least on the B2C commerce, and let's say Service Cloud as an example, that Apex code and all of that stuff is already pre-built, and if the customer or the partner is comfortable making the changes in the code, you could potentially leverage both and actually integrate them in a seamless manner. I think it just requires a little bit more thought, and it'll require a little bit more extra development to make sure that you've done it right. If you're just going to use pure MuleSoft, it's going to require a lot more development. So I'll make my answer a lot more clear. In my view is, the way I think about it is, if you can, use the connectors to connect the clouds, because it covers some of the key use cases that we've typically seen, and it just helps from that perspective. And then use MuleSoft as a way to connect all the external systems and bring that data into Salesforce. So that's how I think about it a lot of times, to just make the decision simpler too.
Miha and Abraham, you're both part of the success team here at Salesforce. Are you offering services today for partners and customers to help with scoping these kind of projects? And we've seen a lot in the beginning of Abraham's presentations about caveats, about gotchas, about things you need to watch out for in order to scope these things and lay out make a proper plan in order to go forward with a cross-cloud implementation. Is that something your team would support?
I can help answer that one. There's actually a couple of different things that Salesforce is doing this year. We actually have a new partner engagement group that actually can help in some of those areas around scoping, around making sure that you've asked the right questions. Whoever asked that question, we can connect offline, and we can give you the name of the person who can potentially help in some of those things. So there's a team that will actually start looking at doing some of those things over the course of the year and helping partners with some of those pieces, scoping, making sure that your estimates are accurate. Are you missing something? Things like that. And then as a high level, as part of the cross-cloud program itself, I think one of the things that we're working with some of our customers on is getting engaged a lot earlier on, and that's where we're working with partners such as yourselves, as well as the customers directly, to make sure that all the right questions are asked as part of that half-day workshop or an hour webinar or question, like a conference call, whatever the case may be. That's where we typically get engaged and help out. But there's other resources available, even like Stefan's organization, to help with some of those pieces in this calendar year, essentially.
Yeah. I think if you're a Salesforce partner, you have a dedicated point of contact that you can reach out to, and then we make the necessary introductions for that one. So, Abraham, one or two very last questions on the first half of your presentation, where you were talking about the implementation guidance, scoping, and so on and so on. You were talking about that one of the requirements is to formulate a point of view on what 360 means to a customer. So what is their vision to a 360-degree view of the customer? And one of the things that you've highlighted there, or you outlined, was how this is actually forcing a re-evaluation of how the customer relationship begins. Can you put in a little more detail to that sentence, what you mean by that?
Yes, absolutely. So this is real interesting. When what we're finding is that, and this is informed by the data strategy and the master record guidance that Mihir is going to cover in tomorrow's session. This is also partially informed by customers' desire to maintain a really rich history of how their customers interact digitally with the brands that they love, right? And so to convey this, let me walk through a couple of use cases that kind of explain the progression. I love NTO, and I want to sign up for their newsletter. So I've never interacted with NTO before. And so what I do is I go to their newsletter sign up form, I enter my first name, last name, and email address, and I sign up for their newsletter. Well, through that interaction, I am now a customer of NTO, or possibly should be considered a customer. This is where our customers need to think about, where does the relationship begin, right? And so now I have a question for a service, and what I do is I submit contact us request to NTO, not through a registered profile, but just by providing my first name, last name, and email address. Now this is where Customer 360 and the resolution engine that it's going to provide really provides value, because what I can do now is I can provide that resolution engine with my first name, last name, and email address, and it should be able to identify who I am in the Salesforce ecosystem, right? And give me an ID representing that. And so with that ID, I can now attribute the question that was asked as a case in Service Cloud. And so now I'm starting to develop a rich history of who I am. I originally start with my newsletter sign up, and now I have my case. My relationship with NTO grows, and what I do is I choose to purchase things online from the storefront as well as in one of their stores, okay? So I'm not registered, I'm being asked or they're trying to incentivize me to register, but now I want to maintain my anonymity. And so I make my purchase, but that history, both the online and offline history, is now able to be attached to that customer representation in Service Cloud. All right, and then now through a piece of incentive magic, I go ahead and register with another order. And so my history as an NTO customer began with a newsletter sign up, continued through the submission of a case, continued through the purchase, the anonymous purchase of online and offline products, as well as through the creation of my registered profile, and then the purchase of products through that profile. So thinking about that collection of interactions, this is where it's important to establish who the customer is and when do you create that customer record, so that you can use those events and attach all of them to that customer's history, so that you get that 360-degree view of who the customer is in terms of how they're attributed, as well as what the customer's done in their relationship with your brand or business. Yeah. And so often what customers think about is that, my relationship begins when they buy something, and that really needs to pivot to when I first interact with you digitally.
Yeah, so it's the entire journey and not just the view on one single event that creates that 360-degree view of the customer, that golden record. Excellent. Thanks, gentlemen. That was the last question for today. Just a little bit more on logistics. There's one question, a really good question from the audience. What would be the best conferences to learn about Salesforce Cross Cloud and to connect with us, with other partners and other customers? I think what I would like to highlight here is obviously the two big sessions and the big conferences coming up this year. One of them is Connections. We like to call it the Dreamforce for Marketing and Commerce, which is going to happen on June 17th. In Chicago, and then obviously Dreamforce happening in November 19th this year in San Francisco. Mihir, Abraham, is there anything else that you want to highlight from your region's perspective in the States?
I think there's Trailhead DX that is going to happen in a few weeks as well. And if you can make it to Trailhead DX, we have a couple of sessions where Abraham's going to cover some of these topics again in a lot more detail. There's going to be other partners and other groups that you can probably engage with as well.
Excellent. Yeah, I think one of the things that I love is looking at the conference schedules and the list of events in DX as well as in Connections. There's a lot of emphasis on cross cloud. So and specifically covering in more depth the topics that we're covering in this webinar series. So it's exciting to be able to present this information to customers and partners.
Perfect. One more thing, I had several questions on the solution kits that were referenced. So we have those solution kits actually available in the partner community. So if you look again at the official Cross Cloud B2C experts group, this is where you can download and review those solution kits from the community. Also, I had questions from people that had trouble adding the calendar file from GoToWebinar to their calendars. Please watch out if you download that. There is many different formats, many different calendar formats. So you may want to look at the way that you're actually importing that calendar file into your, whatever you're using, calendar software. Some of them will reject the last 3 instances of that webinar series. So this calendar file actually includes the 4 webinars in the series. So this one, obviously the one tomorrow, and then the 2 more that will be happening next week. Also, we are going to be sharing a recording of this webinar. You will find it in partner. If you're a partner, you will find it in partner community in the Cross Cloud B2C experts group. And we're also going to have this shared internally if you are a Salesforce employee. And with that, before I wrap up, I would really like to thank everybody that was listening into this webinar today and is watching the recording. But I would like to especially thank our presenters today, Abraham and Mihir. That was a fantastic presentation. Thank you so much. Please tune in tomorrow for the next webinar and take care.
Take care, everyone.